Yo, what is up, Sanctuary and YouTube? War Theory here, bringing you some awesome news and updates that we just received from Blizzard regarding updates to the 2.5 PTR that is now live and testable. The first major component of the updates was that we now officially have Season 2 affirmatively locked in for October 6th, at least US stateside. We don't know the time. I'm going to assume 5 p.m. Pacific. That's usually when they do it. So we are now ready to rock and roll with about 3 weeks to go. Next up, and the biggest announcement in this change, is now the introduction of 6 new unique charms that are going to drop from Terror Zones called the Sundered set, and we will show those live as we walk through. And finally, they did make some small minor updates to a few of the areas that can now be terrorized and some of those that actually dropped out. Let's jump in and review those together. What you're looking at here is the announcement. I will have this link below for those that haven't had a chance to read it. And the first major one here at the top is, as we called out, this is the significant endorsement that we now have line of sight into Season 2 at October 6th. Let's pray and hope that nothing breaks with PTR. There isn't significant feedback that is going to derail this. But for now, we are officially locked in for October 6th. So jumping now down to the Terror Zones, you'll see 2 things specifically highlighted in red that are new additions. You have the Pit in Act 1, and you have City of the Damned in Act 4. However, with these changes, we did now lose some areas such as Maggot Lair, Harem Palace, and Lower Kurast. I'm certainly not upset about the Harem and the Palace. The monster density was terrible. It was not really effective to do those. And with Maggot, it is a pain in the ass, as we know, to go through those. The corridors are extremely tight. And to be honest, most of the chests that are actually in the Maggot Lairs are a lot of super chests, which did not get the benefit and impact of the area level and eye level increases from Terror Zones. So we didn't really lose much there in Maggot Lair. But where this definitely will hurt is Lower Kurast, because they do have a lot of those objects in the form of chests and racks. So that's a little bit of a bummer, as you would have been able to get some really great eye level quality items or elite bases there, and we are now losing a little bit of that. The other call out here, it looks like that Black Marsh was inadvertently included, so it was an oversight. So they are now also officially removing that from the terrorized zones. Now transitioning into the major significant update of the Sundered Charms. So for those that know, in the game of Diablo, when a monster is a immunity of 100% or greater in hell, they are, as I stated, immune. So that way, if you are a cold, lightning, or fire sorc, or even magic for that matter, as a Hammerden, you will not be able to do any harm or damage to them unless you had an infinity on your merc or holding it, which would be a way to break through those immunities. But as we all know, affinity is expensive, not something you can normally acquire early on. And so now with these Sundered Charms dropping from Terror Zones, it gives a little bit more access and optionality for characters that just won't ever be able to afford an infinity. So we talked about it, there's 6 new charms, but the important thing is actually this sentence right here. So if you have one of these charms, what it's effectively doing is now dropping the monster immunity by 5% or greater to minus 95%. This now means the immunity breaks and you have the ability to actually attack them. You'll notice the second sentence here is that it is applied before any additional modifiers. So if you happen to have facets, or if you're using Cold Pierce in the mastery for a sorceress, or you then happen to also have lower resistance ones, or in that case an infinity, all of this is going to apply in kind of a sequencing order, but this could be very, very significant, especially for cold sorcs, which I'm going to show live. The final call out here is that these only are going to drop from elites, the rare, unique, or champion difficulties. These are not going to be eligible to drop from white mobs in the zone, so that's just definitely something to be looking at. Now, there is a trade-off with this, or the double-edged sword, which is if you wear one of these charms, you get the benefit of breaking the immunity, but at the same time, there is going to be an inverse kind of cause and effect action back to you as the character, which in this case is if I had the Black Cleft, I'm now going to see my magic resistance reduced by 50%. With Bone Break, I'm now taking more physical damage. If I have Cold Rupture, my cold resist drops, and so on and so on. So it's a give and take reaction here. I think you just have to pay attention to these. Obviously, you might be able to have multiple Grand Charms on you. It doesn't really necessarily say here. I don't think it's going to necessarily behave like a Geeds. I mean, these are unique charms. I guess we'll have to see. But if you kind of were a dual element attack, such as kind of a Fireball or Firewall and Orb, or Meteor and Blizz, I would presume that you might be able to actually wear a couple of these, but we'll have to check. This is showcasing the characters that you're going to have, and this is a key call out here, is that you are not going to have to find these. These are already on the characters live. So with that said, let's jump right into a live example. All right, so we're going to showcase the Cold Sorc here, because I think this is really critical to call out how amazing of a change this is for Cold Sorc specifically. So you're going to notice, as we called out, that the charm is already in the inventory. I love that they have a little bit of an aesthetic hue here. So in this case, it's blue, being that it is the Cold Rupture charm. It does call out that immunity is sundered, and then you'll see the minus 75 to cold resistance. So if I were to take this charm off and you look at my cold resistance, you'll see that I'm gaining that 75 back immediately. So this demonstrates the effect and impact of having this on. So if you are a cold source, or I guess if you're going to go with possibly a cold Zon, for example, this is definitely something that you're going to want to monitor, or maybe find some small charms to counteract this. So in Act 5, as we know, there tends to be a lot of cold immunities. The obvious one is if you go to Frigid Highlands and you try to attack Eldrick or Shank, you typically don't have the ability to do that. So I'm going to showcase this here on how this charm actually can majorly benefit you. The other call out here is that on this character, they have a default, and it is significant, a 55 points or a minus 140. It's 25 points with a minus 140 into Cold Mastery. So remember again, the charm is now making these characters minus 95. And if you add in the accelerated Cold Pierce, they are now going to be significantly reduced. This means that you are actually going to do significant damage to these characters. Now, I don't have any facets. There is a Fathom and a Nightwing here, but there is no specific Cold Pierce that I have on as far as the gear. So now let's jump right in. So you'll notice getting up here now, if you look at all these Enslaved and Eldrick, you'll notice that everything is now clear to attack, and I am very, very quickly plowing through these guys. Now, yes, I understand this is P1, but that was really, really significant. And again, same thing up here, all of these Enslaved, not even remotely challenging to get through, and there you have it. Pretty quick and painless, quite significant to go through. It truly is going to make Cold Sork obviously S+ tier in my opinion. Not that a Cold Sork wasn't always a cookie cutter build, right? They were very common ones, but at this point now, the combination, if you get a Cold Rupture charm and you still take advantage of your Cold Pierce, this is truly going to be able to melt every single boss, champ pack, terrorize zones, and things in these games. So this is quite significant for the Cold Sork. The other thing that I wanted to show you is that if we go here quickly to a Fire Sork, I mentioned the hue of the Grand Charm, so it does look like across these charms that they are going to be specific to the type. So here in the case of the Flame Rift and the Fire, it has a little bit of a cool red hue to it. It's definitely a really cool, nice touch and aesthetic touch they did here, but that's what we got, folks, for 2.5. Again, this is very new. I just jumped in. I'm going to be practicing and playing with this a little bit more, but I hope you enjoyed this update. Please get your hands on it, and I will see you guys all for Season 2 come October 6th.